This is the Rodney Bull Show, bringing you truth about money they never taught you. Now, here's your host, the man himself, Rodney Bull.
G'day, legends, and what's cracking? Welcome back to the Rodney Bull Show. My guest today brings a level of real-world experience that most people only ever read about. Michael Callan is one of Australia's most experienced anti-corruption specialists, with more than 35 years inside the Australian Commonwealth public sector, including 2 decades in defence as a military officer and senior executive roles across major government departments. In his most recent role as Inspector General of Defence, Michael led teams responsible for fraud control, digital forensics and anti-corruption measures, overseeing complex criminal investigations and working closely with both military and civilian police, here in Australia and internationally. He's been at the table with the AFP Fraud and Anti-Corruption Centre, helped build international fraud networks with partners across the US, UK, New Zealand and cold country Canada, and holds a Master of Arts in Anti-Corruption Studies from the International Anti-Corruption Academy, a United Nations initiative. Today, as CEO of the Australian and Anti-Fraud Corruption Academy, Michael is focused on training organisations to detect fraud earlier, strengthen governance and better support whistleblowers in high-risk environments, which is really important. What stands out about Michael's work is this, I reckon. He's not speaking from theory. He spent decades on the front line of integrity, investigations and protecting systems from being exploited. So if you want a deeper understanding of corruption risks, fraud prevention, and what really happens behind the scenes in major investigations, you're going to get a serious value from this conversation today. Michael Callan, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Bully. It's a real pleasure to see you again and be able to have a great chat with you. So thank you again.
It's looking forward to this mix. It's taken us a little while to put together. It took me a while to get this podcast up and running and get it together. After, me and you met in Thailand middle of last year, and that wonderful event that we went to over there that David Kavanagh put on, and all the rest of the fantastic people that we met over there. Like, I've been really, really impressed with getting to know you and your lovely wife while we're over there, and just what you're all about, Mick. So I'm really stoked to be able to try and have you on today and get you to share your knowledge and insights to my audience, mate, which this is invaluable, what you're going to share with us today.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. It's one of those things I love doing, is just come on and actually pass that knowledge on to other people who have a similar interest and are in a pretty similar sort of set of circumstances.
For sure, mate, for sure. Mick, you've spent decades on the front line of fraud control and anti-corruption inside defence and across government, mate. From your experience, what's the moment or case that really opened up your eyes to just how sophisticated modern corruption has become?
I think it's one that we were peripheral to but part of. It was called the Fat Leonard case. And it's one, and I recommend anyone looking up that case should go and have a look at it. And it's raised regularly in fraud circles. So for me, I had entered a fraud unit, the Defence's fraud unit, that was asleep. And why this case became really seminal for us was, on my very first day of the job at Defence, this case wasn't even on the horizon. Wasn't even on the horizon. But my first day in Defence, the guys came to me with a report saying this is a case that's been completed. Can you sign off on it? And my background was I'd been working in a lot of human services areas, and I'd managed really big teams with multi-million-dollar projects. And in some cases, I'd been working on logistics for helicopters, multi-billion-dollar projects. So I knew where the money should and shouldn't be going. And this case they presented to me, the guys had actually missed the real big part of the case. They mentioned it in the introduction, and then they missed the very first part of it. And it was, we're spending $45 million in a year to store internet dongles. Actually, thousands of internet dongles for no use. And so they immediately got told what they needed to do. Long story short, a lot of people ran around and we saved $45 million on my first day on the job. So I suddenly realised people are not paying attention, because I'd been told there was no fraud and corruption in defence. In the space of the next 6 months, we picked up $60 million, stopped $60 million going out the door.
Some serious money.
Some serious money there, you know. Anyway, we then determined anyway, that we were having the same fraud problems that the Americans were having in Afghanistan, because fraud doesn't just stop because there's a war going. It's rife in those operational zones. So I went and saw my British counterpart and said, hey, I think we've got a problem. We need to bring the Yanks in on this. So we had a meeting in Washington with the Americans, Canadians, UK and New Zealanders. And everyone's arguing about that we're wasting time sharing information, until a Kiwi said, well, you know, you lost $500 million on this case. And they went, yes, well, you've also lost another $500 million because here's the information on it. Like, the Americans lose money like it's nobody's business. So the Americans at that point said, shit, we need this. So I built this thing called the Fraud and Anti-Corruption Network, FATNet, that worked on what they call Five Eyes, the American intelligence system.
Yeah, mate, yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, we got the players in together. Fantastic. We started sharing information. The Yanks, we then went over to the Yanks to get a briefing on what their big cases were. And I'm sitting there with myself, my UK on one side counterpart, my New Zealand counterpart on the other, and they're talking about the Fat Leonard case, which I'll go to in a sec. And the American presenter turned to me and said, oh, by the way, we've caught one of your guys who's working with us, you know, seconded officer to the US Navy. We've caught him in this case as well. And my jaw dropped. And the Kiwi, as you can imagine, turned to me and said, that wiped the fucking smile off the face, didn't it? I still got it in my head. So this case is classic corruption. If you could ever, and what Fat Leonard did was he shaped the environment, which really showed me the change in my attitude towards fraud control. It wasn't about individual cases or individual types of fraud or corruption. It was the environment in which it thrived. So Fat Leonard was a Filipino-born businessman who provided port services. So, you know, when your ship comes into port and they put water in it and they put fuel in it and they take away all the rubbish. He ran that. And he ran it for the US Navy. Lucrative, absolutely lucrative when you think of the US Navy size.
I can imagine.
He ran the entire Pacific. The entire Pacific. And the way he did it was really, to me, just, my eyes were going like this the whole time I was watching this. So what you would do is a ship would pull up at the port and the entire ship's officer complement would be taken to $1,000 a plate dinner on the top story of the best restaurant, the best hotel and the best restaurant in town. $1,000 a plate.
Wow.
And they would target the particular officers they wanted, and they would actually start off with some small gifts, and they pay for a prostitute and a hotel room for them. And by the time they realised that they were trapped, it was bags of money.
And the ultimate key.
The ultimate key. And what he'd done was he could ring up and say, can you put a destroyer here? I need additional cash. So ships would literally move at his bidding to be refueled at his locations.
Wow.
So he knew exactly where every single fleet ship, carrier group, and unfortunately submarine was in the Pacific.
A little scary for somebody like to know that much information, isn't it? Hey, and
Correct.
And for the army not to have picked up on that fact that an outsider like that who could be compromised easily.
Well, he was compromised because his staff were Chinese and they were feeding that information back to the Chinese government. So it went from the highest ranked Navy admiral in the US Pacific Fleet down to probably the lowest officer. There were no one was clean. So I suddenly realised this is an environmental thing. He set up the environment, and he set it up so everyone was trapped. And the only reason and not only did he do that, he actually bribed and corrupted what they call, NCIS, a Naval Criminal Investigation Service.
Yeah.
The senior coordinator there had been corrupted as well. So any complaints came in, he'd quash them and put them on one side or delete them or whatever he had to do. So I'm sitting saying to my people, we've got a system issue that we have to look at. We look at the environment that we've got, and then we've got to look at the system issue. Now, the only reason he got caught, and it's quite funny, is a Navy commander in Japan, US Navy commander in Japan, his wife found out that he was regularly going off for prostitutes, and she knew the money wasn't going out, so who was paying for this? So she went to the coordinator and said, this NCIS guy said, I think my husband's being bribed, and he's getting bribes by having prostitutes being paid for. And the NCIS guy said, no, leave it with me. And then nothing happened. Now, look, mate, I'll be honest, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
How true, how true.
How true. So she took that to be, the lack of response to be a bit of an insult. So she directly rang the US Department of Defense's Inspector General and said, this is what's going on. And that's when it fell apart.
Yeah.
So they caught everyone. A lot of people got sick. I think 20 officers got reduced in rank. People got reduced from senior admiral right down to just to captain and all sorts of things. It was quite amazing. And I'm sitting there going, who does our port services? Good question. And then I said, have we had any complaint about our port services? And my guys went off and looked and said, yes, we did. So every time an incident happens in defence, it's reported to us. But it comes with, has it been investigated? Has it been finished? Or do we need to investigate it? And we found that every time a complaint came in, guess what? It had been investigated and nothing to be seen by the same guy. So I went, we have a problem here. Now, it turned out that guy wasn't corrupt. He was just not paying attention. So it was more incompetence than corruption. But exactly the same process was occurring in terms of we were being ripped off for millions. So we executed a search warrant with the AFP on his offices. We destroyed his business, absolutely destroyed it. We couldn't get him criminally because he was able to get away with it, but we destroyed his business. We made sure he got booted out of Home Affairs because he was involved in the overseas Manus Island stuff.
Yeah.
And he went to ground. He went to ground really quickly, and the AFP seized all his household goods, home, his Porsche, the Mercedes Benz, that sort of stuff. So it was the Fat Leonard case that just woke my eyes up to how this actually operates, how complex it could be. Good case.
Hell of a case, Mick.
Hell of a case, yeah. And it's still going on.
Any wonder it opened your eyes up, Cobber.
Well, I was still dealing with credit card fraud. Someone got the defence travel card and ripped us off for $400. And I'm sitting there going, God, this is such a boring job. I've had really fantastic. This is such a boring job. And then I realised, because we've been basically told to look at the lower level stuff, not to look at the big level stuff. When we started looking at the big level stuff, you could actually see, hang on, there's some dodgy shit going on there. And when the worst moment I think I had in the job was when I went to the Defence Audit Committee and said, I think what we should do is that we should formally record people's conflict of interest and register it at a central registry. Well, you thought I'd raped their dogs, because the amount of yelling and screaming going inside that committee, that's appalling. No way we're doing that. Even my boss, who thought it was a good idea, he went to water and just slipped under the desk while I was copping the heat. And there was only one bloke in the room that was looking at me, directly looking me in the eye, and that was the Deputy Chief of the Defence Force. And he got me outside later and he said, great idea. It's never going to work with that lot because there's too much a risk to them. So I had a lot of eye-opening moments in that job, but I got a real passion for doing the stuff because I suddenly realised we've been looking at this all wrong.
Yeah.
And if you go and look at Australia generally, we look at this all wrong. And internationally, we look at it all wrong as well. So I think if you look at the National Anti-Corruption Commission, for instance, that has been set up wrong deliberately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, Mick. Like what you're telling me there says to me, like you were told to look at lower levels and not look at higher level stuff. And it's like, well, why were you being directed down at the bottom rungs of the ladder? Like who's steering the ship from up at the higher levels to try and deter you or anyone else like you that's investigating stuff like that from looking higher, looking deeper, looking harder? Because them people, a lot of them are compromised, and it's going to threaten their way of life.
I was going on very well with everybody, including the head of the agency at that stage, up until we decided to investigate a deputy secretary. At which point my career trajectory went, stopped. And I had no problem with that because I was kind of bored. I really was bored at that point. There wasn't enough to do. It wasn't a doing job. It was not even a thinking job. It was just a job. And I was actually contemplating leaving. And at that point, when we ran into the significant resistance, I made the decision to pull the pin and leave. But what then occurred afterwards was that every single person that they told me not to investigate had been actually sacked, terminated, removed because of other incompetences. So a lot of the time, these people were working in an environment where the networks are supporting them. And as soon as they took out the key network element, the key to holding the network together, they're horribly exposed. And as Janet was saying to me, you should stop doing this, because on Saturday morning I would get out the Canberra Times and read that this person had just been terminated for something. I'd go, that's one more down. That's just get work. Karma's doing my work for me type stuff. Because generally, generally, the system will kick back eventually and get you for something. But what the system's not good at is actually criminally doing it.
Yeah.
So the general public doesn't see that things are occurring to these corrupt individuals unless it goes criminal. And we only ever go for the lower hanging fruit, because then that protects that layer of senior executive area, as opposed to, I don't care. We put a woman in jail for a year and a half for a $1,300 fraud, and I kept looking at my guys going, why don't we just ask her to pay it back? It was a credit card fraud. It was $1,300. Get her to pay it back and sack her. Well, we took her to court. She did a year and a half in the can. And I'm going, so this woman can never get another job in the public sector ever again. You guys really serious about this?
How ridiculous is it, Mick? How much money did you spend to go and prosecute that woman? And then how much money did it cost the Australian taxpayer to keep her in jail for a year and a half? Certainly a bit more than $1,300.
$1,300. We sent a message to the community. Well, I know the message that was sent to me was, and I think this is where it's really important to understand that for me, working in this environment, I'm all for the easy option. When it comes to punishing people, I'm for the easy option, because swift justice is the best way of doing it.
But it has to be true justice, and it has to be,
correct.
Right and correct,
Spending 5 years to put a woman in jail for 18 months did not make any logical sense to me whatsoever. But taking someone in the room and saying, you got about 30 seconds to explain yourself. Oh, you can't explain yourself. The door's a big wooden thing there with a handle in it. You're out, mate. Take your bat and the ball, don't come back. And you can, in the Australian Public Service, you can ban them from coming back into that agency. You can't ban them from going to another agency. But that swift, and I had a really good boss. Well, she wasn't a good boss. She was a pain in the ass, but she was really good at one thing. When she was teaching you a lesson, you knew the lesson was coming. And she terminated one of our area managers for bullying behaviour and lack of leadership. And they did an investigation. She, went all through the proper process, and at the end, she went terminate and booted her out of the building. I was then sitting at my desk. I wasn't involved in this, and she popped up this email. I have terminated the area manager of this area, blah, 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 for the following reasons. She will never work in this agency again. And I thought, oh, shit. So I walked in and said to her, hey, privacy issues here. You've just told everyone she's sacked. And she looked at me and said, yeah, and there's no privacy issues because her sacking will appear in the public gazette. as a sacking. Oh, okay, so everybody knows now. So I spoke to one of the next run down from us and said, how do you feel about that? And he said, well, I know Margaret does follow through on what she says she's going to do. We didn't have a problem with anyone after that.
Yep.
Everyone started to behave. And I think I'm all for that. But when people can see that nothing fundamental happens, the worse the crime is, the less the punishment, that's when I think you get that frustration. And I get very frustrated when I can see exactly what's going on.
Well, you and me, Mick, and I don't see the stuff that you get to see by any means, mate, in my life compared to the life that you lead and the business that you work in, departments that you've been in. But through my experience in life and through studying the financial system and what's going on throughout our world and how it's all designed and runs, ultimately, from the way I understand it, mate, money is the problem. Like the money itself and the system that we live under is the big issue. And our monetary system, when you come to understand it, is designed to be corrupt. And because of that exact reason, money touches every facet of every culture in every country on planet Earth. And so if the money's corrupt, everything it touches, it corrupts. And it corrupts everything.
Yeah. The only difference I'd say, it's money's not corrupt, money's corrupting. So money's just an object. It's like guns. Okay?
Yeah.
That old saying, guns don't kill people. Angry dads with guns kill people. Was it angry dads with daughters and guns kill people? It's a tool in which it's used to show wealth. If you go back to where do I store my additional wealth? Well, I have this money thing, my promissory note, or a tablet with crosses and dots on it. We're going back to Mesopotamia, 6,000 years ago. This started.
Yeah.
But what we've got is we've got people that will take any system and exploit it for their own good.
Yeah.
That range of individuals who'll exploit it. So the monetary system now is so fragile, in my view. It's so complex. I must tell you a funny story about crypto. And then it also all pervasive, as you said, it's easily corrupted into a tool.
Yeah. Well, it is a tool, Mick, and like you said, it's designed. True money should preserve your expended efforts of energy, which is your life force. You burning through your life force, your time, which is your most precious commodity in this lifetime. You're expending that through labour to acquire payment of some form, and money should store that energy that you've expended for you to be able to utilize at a later date. But our current fiat currency, debt-based fiat currency system does not allow you to do that in any way, shape, or form. It is stealing your purchasing power from you every second, every minute, every hour of every day. That's what I meant by it. That's how it creates the corruption within the system.
No disagreement.
And it's designed to do exactly that. Like, it does what it's meant to do. And it does it exceptionally well.
Well, if you think about it, right, if I took $10,000, put it in an envelope, and then put it into a drawer at home and left it there, the system's designed to make sure that in 10 years' time, it's only going to be worth about half of what it's worth now.
Yep.
It's in spending power, in pure spending power.
Yep,
so when you talk about that I'm going to generate enough, I'm going to take the energy, and I love that term they're using, it's generating the energy. I'm storing my energy in a $10,000 envelope in my drawer. The energy's just been sapped by the sheer changes in the market size and inflation. So the system is designed to deflate the value of your currency.
It's just like fiat currency is just like a melting ice cube, Mick.
Yes,
it really is.
That's right. So from my perspective, and I have the philosophy, I'm only renting. The things that I own, I'm only renting. And unless they have some form of emotional connection to me, they're really not worth anything. And so therefore I'm not going to get overly wound up about them. So this again, it gets where am I expending my energy type conversation. If I keep it in the system, I'm then trapped in that I have to be part of that system that's devaluing my other assets at the same time, and it got held out. So how do you stop that? How do you stop inflation? How do you stop this taxation process where we've been taxed to death? The layers of taxation. God, if I have to pay another bloody rates bill, I'll go nuts.
Yeah,
but again,
tell me about it.
Come back to it. My stored energy's been wasted.
Yeah, mate, it's being depleted away from you, and when you break it down, Mick, when you really break it down, your life is being stolen from you because it's your life force, energy of your life force that you're expending in labour and through whatever job you do in life to be able to acquire and build wealth.
Yeah.
And the fiat currency system is it's a melting ice cube. It's just stealing it away from you. So ultimately, it's quite evil in a way because it's stealing your life, mate. And our lives pretty precious, I believe.
You don't get a second chance. That's the whole thing.
Not that I'm aware of yet, anyway.
Or if it is, I hope it's better than this one. No, that's not quite true. I quite enjoy it.
I like this one.
Yeah. The other part to this is that if you look at it if you do look at it, my stored effort, I'm giving, in the sense of tax, I'm giving my stored effort to a government to provide back to me things that we all need.
Yes, like community service and utilities and such. Yes.
Yeah, roads. Yeah. So
I don't have an issue with paying taxes for that, but our taxes aren't getting spent in the way that they should be getting spent.
And that's an issue around corrupt government too. So I've got a corrupt government. I give you my $50,000 a year, let's say, and you take my $50,000 in tax, and you then give it to somebody else to build something that none of us wanted in the first place, that doesn't actually value add to my life. You give them my $50,000, and then you get a kickback from it in some other form. So part of my tax in reality is being given to the very people I voted in to look after me.
Yeah.
So can you see the complexity of that conversation? It's around, I gave money to a government that then the minister responsible for water then gave it to his own company.
Yep.
His own, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there paying taxes so he can enrich himself? I don't think so.
No.
But until
that's what I mean, that's what this money that runs our world, and it runs our whole world, this money, that's what it's done. It just corrupts everything it touches. It really does. And it's quite disturbing, Mick. So in regards to preserving your purchasing power, we're heading off on a little tangent here. We'll get back on track in a minute. But where do you personally, or what do you regard as the best way to preserve your purchasing power, mate, and your hard-earned wealth?
Yeah, so we had
outside of the system.
Years ago, Jenna and I were told by a really nice guy in the army, go out and see Jim. So Jim's our accountant at Ingleburn, of all places. He's been there. We've known him for 40 years. I'm pretty sure he's about 800 years old, not out, but he just keeps on going.
Jim. Shout out to Jim.
Shout out to Jim. Jim at Oz Tax Accounting in Ingleburn, brilliant. And he and his son are brilliant at tax. And
okay,
my financial advisor.
I might have to get you to introduce me to them.
Yeah, I will. He's really good, Jim. Jim said there's a triangle. And it's at the base of the triangle, you want property, physical property, like houses and flats and things like that.
Tangible asset.
Next, you go for stocks, but that's a little less than your property. And then what you want is cash at the top, because cash is what you live on. But you don't want lots and lots and lots and lots of cash. Well, we do, but you can't generate it because then you're going to pay tax on it. So that's what we did, and we invested in managed superannuation funds rather than into shares directly. Although we do have some direct shares, mainly so I can throw money away. But the properties, on the other hand, have now reached a maturation that means we could live off what's coming off that very comfortably.
That's awesome, Mick. Well done, mate.
So that's that. So if anything happened to Generai, the other one's got this fallback position. Our managed superannuation funds built enough cash flow up that we're going to sink all our debt and still have a fair bit of cash in reserve in our superannuation fund, and then our cash flow from all that will be this at the cap at the top, would allow us to do an overseas trip once a year quite comfortably, pay off all our money, go to the theatre, go to the movies, etc., etc. So we're recouping the energy that we put back in the 80s and 90s and early thousands and mid 2000s. We're recouping that in having a fun time on the way out the door.
And that's how it should work.
That's how it should work, because we said tangible assets.
That's what saving's all about, and saving your hard time spent energy, life force, into something that preserves your purchasing power over long periods of time. So tangible assets do that.
Now, I've got friends who did not do that. They bought a home, a family home, and they put the rest into a managed superannuation fund. Okay. And they're in the same boat as us. They've now got enough tangible asset. They've got the best, I've got to tell them, they've got the best 4-bedroom flat that overlooks Lake Burley Griffin, and we go there on New Year's Eve and they have this massive firework display and they're looking right at it. Like literally, they've done really, really well. And a very big, yeah. It's good having champagne on that balcony, I can tell that one. And they've got these got their managed superannuation fund. So they've been sensible of the fact that they've got something left. And it's all been this, what happens to the other person, that partnership that you get with a married couple type thing. I've got other friends who've invested, and it's true. I had a friend of mine who invested everything he had into shares. So we're both the same. We both married at the same time. We both served in the same unit at the same time. We both had 2 sons. We both got 4 grandkids. And he invested his in shares, right? He will have to work until he's in his late 70s to recoup what he lost on the shares. Bad investment decisions. If you invest in property, the worst thing that happens is you're going to have a reduced rental amount, or you've got to pay to fix something, which we've had to do a couple of times. But when you're playing with shares, it's a volatile market because the market's set against you. The market's set against you, and you come back to your comment about a corrupting influence. I want a little bit in shares, but I'm not committing myself to shares because it's part of the monetary system. The house, on the other hand, I got both hands on that.
Yeah,
I got both hands, and I think that's the important part about this.
Yeah,
that, and I think personally, the market is the financial markets, the Dow Jones, New York Stock Exchange. They're actually driven by behaviour of people with a lot of money, and it's the smaller crowd that follow them through too. Can I take us on a tangent though? Just a quick tangent. It's my favourite subject. It's about people, which is corrupting people.
Yep.
There's a manual book out from the 1950s. There's 3 types of people I have to do that because my shoulder doesn't let me close my hand properly. There's 3 types of people in a workplace, right? In any set of circles, there's 3 types of people. There's a type A person whose integrity is beyond doubt. There's a type B person whose integrity is, it's a bit wishy-washy. If they can get away with something, they might. Otherwise, they'd think twice about it. And then the third person's got no integrity. Okay, they will steal from the organisation. That's what they come up with. So in the mid 2000s, when I was working, I said there's a 4th person, number 4, this little guy here. People looked at me and said, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's a predator." And he used type C person to steal from type B and type A. And the way I explain it to people, it's like this: you can put $1 million in cash on a desk.
Yep.
Nothing in the room. The type A personality will walk into that room, see that $1 million and go, "Can't leave that there. That's not too bad." They'll count it, they'll record it, they'll get assistance, and they'll put it in a safe somewhere and report that they found it. And they'll have someone checking them to make sure they did the right thing. That's a type A integrity person. A type B person will walk in and go, Oh, I wonder if they miss one of those stacks. Because does anybody know there's $1 million here? I'm just not quite sure. And if they might go either way, 50-50 chance. The type C person will come in and check if there's cameras in the room. And then
Yep.
they'll make a judgment call how much they can fit into their briefcase, and then they'll take as much as they can. The predator will set up the circumstances so that $1 million is in that room, and they'll give a really large bag to the type C personality. That's the difference. And they run through. So the insider threat in most organisations ignore the predator. They're always looking for the person that did it, not the person that set up the conditions to allow that person to do it. So it's quite a fascinating. And I explain that to senior management, and they look at me and go, "Oh yeah." It's quite weird.
The predator tends to be very intelligent, very unassuming person most times, I'd imagine.
Yeah, the biggest, the loudest in the room is the one I tend to focus on. The one that tells you that they have the highest integrity is the one that'll go, "Oh, really?" And that's the person I'll look at. So I find that's the other problem in this system. Trust me. As soon as you say trust me in a financial system, I'm going to go, no way. I'm going to trust you, mate.
What's the old saying? Oh, I'm from the government and we're here to help.
Help you. But no, Kerry Packer said it well. You guys aren't managing the money I've given you already. Why should I give you some more?
Give you any more? Yeah. I love that interview with him, mate. It's gold. It is
Well,
gold.
he was right on the money. He was an incredibly brilliant man. But this whole thing about money corrupting is because the predators have made it a tool to corrupt you. And don't be fooled into thinking that all these businesses out there, it's only the government, big business out there, they do things. I was quite shocked. I was given a presentation on it. I was quite shocked that in one of the councils here in Australia, one of their major suppliers of services actually kept a record of every single person that worked for the council. Names of their kid, their address, date of birth, telephone number, name of their wife, her date of birth, her address, all their kids, which school they went to, how much money they had in the bank, all this information they'd gathered. They had a really good intelligence gathering service.
Far out. It's a lot of information.
Yeah, and they would use that to corrupt individuals within the organisation to get more contracts. So it's the money is the corrupting tool.
Yeah.
But it comes back to people. Now, if we hadn't invented money, what would have done this? I don't know. If we were still in a trade-based economy, I still reckon you could.
Oh, corruption's always there. It's a part of our world, our life. It really is, especially humans. I don't think you tend to see it too much in the animal kingdom, but we created money because ultimately barter can only work to a certain extent.
Yeah. And it's really interesting.
And there's been many forms of money, but this money that runs our world today is corrupt.
Oh,
it really
absolutely.
Is. It's not money. Huge... This is the big key takeaway, Mick, is it's not money. Currency is not money.
Correct.
It is not money, and that's the problem. That's the biggest lie that we've all been sold, big time. We've been led down the river with that one massively. It is not money. JP Morgan himself said many years ago that gold and silver are the only two things that are money, and everything else is credit.
Correct. Oh, absolutely. I've given my bank all my money. My bank owes me that amount of money that's in my bank account at the present moment. Yeah. Chances of getting it back, pretty good. But if there's a bank run, chances of getting it back, no good. They default on my loan to them. I'm really loaning the bank the money.
That's the thing now. The legislation is there. It's in law and has been for quite some time throughout all the Western countries of the world that you are, and this come about after the 2008 great financial crisis, and they done the Frank Dodd thing in America, and they rewrote the rules and legislations around it. You and I and everybody else that puts their money into a bank, you are an unsecured creditor.
Yeah.
So the second you put your money into the bank, it is no longer your money. That becomes a liability of the bank, and the bank then does what's called fractional reserve banking. And say you put $100 in, they only have to keep 10% of it, and then they loan out $90 of that $100.
Yeah.
And that next person that gets that $90 loan, they put that money back into their account and it gets done again. And that just keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening. But if you put your money in the bank, it's no longer your money. It's really not.
And they treat it like it's no longer your money too.
Oh yeah, don't they make it hard for you now trying to get it out if you try and get it out in any sort of lump sum?
So we'll close our bank. We'll have banks, the shop front, and we'll have an ATM at the shop front, and we'll just start closing ATMs all over the countryside until you're forced into smaller locations. Fortunately, so we don't use a lot of. We've reversed that cycle. So one of the years ago, one of our friends said to us, "Why are you still paying cash?" And I said, "Because I don't want to build up a credit card debt." And he went, No. What you do is you decide what your budget is for the month. You spend to the budget on your credit card, and then you wait until 54 days and pay it off then. And I'm not following you here, mate. He said, every time you put money in your pocket, it'll just dissipate. It's like water, just because you'll buy this, you'll pay for that, you'll do this, you'll see something, I'll pay for it, So you've got no control over it. But if you take your credit card out, right, you think twice before using a credit card. I don't now because I've been using it so often. But you just pay. And then at the end of the month, you pay it off. Or you pay it at the 54-day mark, because 55-day interest free. But you pay it off at the end of the month. I went, okay, I'll give that a crack. Within 3 months, I had more money in the bank. So because I wasn't drawing it out, and every time I pulled the credit card out, I wasn't giving money to charities or anything. The old, give me $10, buy a ticket, something like that. Haven't done that for ages because I don't carry cash. Someone's coming around this afternoon with $125 to buy something off me in cash. And I said to him, fine, but I ain't got change, mate. So bring $125. That changed our finances to the positive because we weren't concerned about the credit card, racking up a credit card debt. Well, you did, but it was the bank was holding it. And as long as you stayed in the interest-free zone, it was just, you weren't even paying a service fee on it.
Yeah.
So that's where you got
good and well if you can manage it right, Mick, but how many people do?
Well, they don't hand out credit cards anymore. They hand out debit cards. So my business has not got a credit card. It's got a debit card. We still got our original credit card from 30.
Well, how good is this yarn, Money Stackers? We're out of time today, so I'm going to have to cut it off there and turn this into 2 episodes. But I really want you to hear what else Mick Callan has to say about using credit cards and cash and a whole lot of other things. I'll bring you the rest of our conversation next week, and I hope you can join me then. Until then, take care out there. Come on, stack.
This has been another episode of The Rodney Bull Show, a Rebel Edge production. Please share with your family and friends, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.